spent the past couple of years in a crazy hot market. Louisville home sales decline as demand outpaces supply. Effective communication is at the core of any situation. If you master these two ideas, you'll have a chance of being successful at residential real estate marketing. I think you need to be looking for investment opportunities that move the needle. The market will never crash if demand exceeds supply. This is what I've been telling you all along.
This is the Jay Pitts Show.
Man, that never gets old, I can tell you. I'm going to be excited to hear that each week. Welcome to the Jay Pitts Show. I am Jay Pitts. My co-host, Mr. Ryan Harris, here beside me. Sir, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Wonderful, wonderful. For the first episode, I'm kind of excited, maybe just a little bit of nerves. I've talked on camera and microphone quite a bit in the past few years, so I think we'll be just fine. But audience, if you'll bear with us, this is a new radio show. You know, we're gonna kind of see how it goes. We've got a plan on how we're gonna address things, but the Louisville market is definitely going to be a big part of it. Those of you that don't know me, I'm a broker owner here in Louisville. My name is Jay Pitts. Remax Premier Properties is our company. You're going to get to hear a little bit more about us today. But Ryan, before we get started, what you got, man? What's on your mind?
Yeah, I'll introduce myself real quick. The show is called the Jay Pitts Show, so we'll get into learning a little bit more about you. But yeah, I'm Ryan Harris. I'm an agent on Jay's team. I own a company called Simba here in the Louisville market. It is a real estate technology company, just a startup. We raised some money and we're trying to do some really cool things here. And overall, I enjoyed talking to Jay about a lot of the things we're going to talk about on this show. That's a little bit of my background, though. We'll get into more on how Jay and our relationship.
Well, you should know that Ryan is the guy that when I'm on Twitter and I find an interesting, financial services story or crypto story or economic story, like Ryan's the guy that I hit up in the DMs with a link and we go back and forth. It doesn't really matter when that is. So that should tell you a little bit about our relationship.
Yeah, it'll be good. I would enjoy going back and looking at our threads over the last 4 years and how it's changed and what we thought was going to happen and what did happen. Yeah. It's pretty interesting.
Well, I can tell you this, we've run a podcast for several years, the Resource Podcast. You can still find it anywhere you podcast and find the old episodes. But I used to do a prediction show at the beginning of every year, and I would do a review show at the end of the year. I was so embarrassed about my 2022 predictions that I did not recap them in December. I think it said something to the effect of Bitcoin at 75,000. I think that was the one I was most embarrassed by. Turns out it was about a third of that. So
it got close to it.
At some point, it did not finish close to it. Anyway, so so that's Ryan. He talked to you a little bit about Simba there. You will hear much more about Simba throughout the show, and because it's what we do. That's what we're going to talk about here. We're going to talk about what we do every day. We're going to talk about what we think. You can find me on all the socials. I am never shy to share an opinion, never shy to go on the record with that opinion and defend that opinion, frankly. So that's going to be a big part of this show because it's a big part of who I am, right? And I think one thing that would be prudent to do, Ryan and I really didn't, we knew we were going to do this. We didn't really talk about how we were going to set this up, but it's important that you know who we are. So let's take a minute here in segment one, and let's just talk about who I am and why I'm on the radio. So I told you a minute ago, I'm the broker owner of a real estate company here in Louisville. We are affiliated with Remax. We are Remax Premier Properties. Also co-owner of a mortgage company that is affiliated with Remax as well, Motto Mortgage Premier Partners. You're going to hear more from many of these folks that work in these different companies that we're affiliated with as the show progresses. But yeah, mortgage was a natural lead-in from running a high-powered real estate team and, a cutting-edge kind of brokerage operation. So Motto Mortgage is another thing that I do. I am also co-owner of a company that does residential real estate investment property management. So that is, Premier Property Management Services. And, also big on real estate investing. I mentioned a minute ago, and probably what I'm known most for is my team, JT Pitts and Associates. We are the number one real estate team in the state of Kentucky, as far as I can tell. There is no, official record keeper for who is number one, but I've worked pretty hard to substantiate this claim, and I'm willing to bring the receipts, if you will, here on the radio. 167 million, over 600 transactions closed last year. And listen, I'm very proud of that. We haven't always been number one in the state of Kentucky. I believe we're number one in 21, and also certainly in 22. Expect to be in 23. We're off to a very good start this year, but there's not a lot of chest pounding that needs to go on here. Really, I only, like I said, bring the receipts on that because it's a proven track record that leads to that, right? It's certain things. It's showing up every day, doing the right things, even if they're seemingly insignificant, just consistently and ruthlessly executing. Teaching people how to build a small business, because that's what a real estate agent is. They're a small business owner. And if you don't have the discipline to show up and do the right things every day, then you're not going to be successful at anything you do. So anyway, that's probably what I'm best known for, is being, the leader of JT Pitts and Associates. But, there's a lot of history that goes into that too.
Yeah, I've been very lucky to be on the team for a while, and I know you want to be humble about it, but the team absolutely crushes it. I've been, like I said, lucky to watch it grow over the last few years, and it's truly incredible what it's blossomed into, and it can only do that when you do stay consistent. But you talked a little bit about what you do in Louisville. Why don't you get into the history and how you came to Louisville and your relationship with the city?
Well, and that's another thing. Ryan and I have a lot in common. Number one, we're born in the same hometown. Okay. We both went to Bellarmine University. Ryan is, I will say, I'll do myself a favor and say he's a little bit younger than me. Maybe quite a bit would be more apropos. But, our fathers actually did business together. Mark, Ryan's dad is a builder, real estate investor in Elizabethtown. That's where we grew up. My father, Jeff Pitts, was a real estate broker, real estate property manager. He was a team owner. He essentially did exactly what I do, right? And he was well ahead of his time. Real estate teams are quite common these days. When Dad got in the business, they weren't. And he was a bit of a pioneer, at least in this part of the country. In 2005, he was in the top 10 of all real estate teams in the country, as reported by Wall Street Journal. So now you would know that list as the Real Trends list, which, we'll talk about. I've actually got an email in my inbox right now asking me to respond to Real Trends and produce the information for our team and our brokerage so that we can be considered for the list this coming year. But Dad was top 10, right? So I got to learn a lot from that. As I sit here, my son's sitting in the corner of the room, no school today. That was probably more my childhood than it has been his so far. He's a 10-year-old, goes to school at St. Michael here in Louisville. He's smirking at me right now. He's wearing a Remax Premier Property shirt, so I appreciate the fact that he showed up wanting to represent today. But, I got to go to work with Dad a lot more than he does, right? But he definitely, and my kids, they definitely get some of the same opportunities being around the office and seeing what Mom and Dad do for a living. So that was me. It was job sites. It was, closing tables. It was riding around, sitting in the car while Dad was showing houses or showing commercial space or walking a big job site. That was, I often liken it to the car dealer's kid, right? Like, small, and this is just the small town coming out in me, but, the small town family car dealership where the dealer's son or daughter works in every single department, and it's like almost like they rotate one a year, so that they can know the entire dealership, so that when Mom or Dad decide to retire, right, then son or daughter knows how to run the business, right? That was me with residential real estate and commerciat real estate and construction and all those things. So came to Louisville. You asked that next, to go to Bellarmine, played baseball there. Ryan also played a sport at Bellarmine University. He was a golfer. Much better on the golf course, I can attest, than I am. I think I might hit a curveball better, though.
I guarantee it.
Maybe.
The golf ball is still.
The golf ball, there's no chance of me ever catching up on that. I can generate. I was at Topgolf the other day, 178 mile an hour ball speed off the driver.
That's really good, especially with the golf clubs there.
Well, we're members now, so they bring out the special clubs. All right, so that's something. But needless to say, I swing real hard. We're not so sure where it's going to end up. But yeah, that's pretty much what it does. I got into real estate, pretty soon. Got licensed as soon as I got done with college. Went into the mortgage business. You'll hear more about that as the show progresses. Was a REO listing agent, which is kind of from another era to really discuss. So what that essentially means is successful early on when others were really struggling, and had the opportunity to build our team on the back of that.
Yeah. Real quick here, Jay, you mentioned you're from E-Town. You've been in Louisville a long time now. What is it that you love about Louisville? I mean, there had to be something that made you want to stay.
Oh, dude, it's a big little city.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know how else to say it, right? You get what you want from a big city, I think. Big city people, New York, Chicago people may not agree. But you get what you want from a big city, but you get the familiarity, you get the culture, you get like the feel of a smaller town. And we know, right? We grew up in a small town.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's a very, very, very big E-Town.
Very big.
Where you feel like you know everybody still, but you can get away from people also if you want to.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. That's for sure. Any city where they ask where you went to high school, not where you went to college, I mean, that reflects the small town kind of underpinnings of the culture here. So, I mean, it's Louisville's home, that's for sure. I knew pretty quickly. My wife didn't give me much of a choice. She's from a larger place, from suburbs of Cincinnati. So she said, "I'm not going back to E-Town." And I said, "Okay, I can stay here."
Yeah, I always thought I might end up back in E-Town, but I'm going to be like you. Louisville's home, and I love it.
Yeah, I agree. All right, folks, that's about it for our first segment here. We're going to let you hear from some of our sponsors and come back right after the break.
Welcome back to the Jay Pitt Show, Talk Radio 1080. Let's start this off with a bang, Jay, and discuss a topic that everyone seems to be talking about, whether it's social media, family gatherings, the media themselves, you name it. And that topic is the U.S. housing market crashing? I know you have very strong opinions on this, so I'm very eager to hear what you have to say.
Well, I mean, a quick sampling of our social media that we put out would tell you my opinion on this. No, absolutely not is the answer. I mean, so for example, you're hearing this because there's a lot of folks very bullish on crash. I really don't understand it. I don't. I get the resistance, and I hear it every day, right? In the comments on our social media, the resistance I get there. But I don't understand who it benefits, how you benefit. Why would you cheer for a crash? It doesn't make any sense. But, I will answer your question very, very directly in that there are two levers that make the real estate market move, right? There is a supply lever and a demand lever. Right. It's widely publicized where we are with supply, and it's been that way for quite some time. And anything and everything that has developed since we had a supply shortage has just exacerbated the supply shortage. Demand is what you're seeing pull back. We saw a substantial pullback in demand, 30-40%, October, November, December, Q4 of 2022. We've seen a resurgence in demand, and you're starting to see the media actually acknowledge this in January of 23 and now into February. But you cannot have a crash with only one lever being adjusted, right? So we pull back the lever on demand. Well, supply is still so short that there's enough demand to absorb the supply that we have. Now you're seeing certain segments like new construction, real low price points struggle, and that's a reflection of affordability with interest rates going up and that kind of thing. But it does not equal a crash.
Yeah, I want to point out, you said who does a crash benefit? And it's nobody, but everybody's rooting for it. Let's take a homeowner, for example. They're even rooting for a crash, but what they don't think about, that home they need to sell to buy another house is going to be worth less if there is a crash.
No, it's so true. It's so true. So, I think we have to go back to the supply side to really understand. So the run on prices was created by the really artificially low interest rates. 2%, 3%, 30-year fixed rate mortgages, high twos, low threes. For a sustained period of time, almost 24 months, we had this, right? And so a lot of people upgraded. And I use this example when I talk to our agents in the office, right? A lot of people upgraded further than they expected to be able to, right? But that was imaginary. That was not wealth building in their pocket. They didn't pull money out of their pocket. They sold their home for 20, 25% more than they expected to get for it. They financed at a rate substantially lower than they expected to be able to obtain, creating another 20 to 25% worth of affordability. So your $250,000 seller, which is right at the median price in this market, that was going to buy a $400,000 home, instead they sold for $300,000, and instead of financing at 4.5, they financed at 2.75. So they went right from expecting to buy $400,000 to buying $600,000 instead, for the same output monthly, right? And that was relatively imaginary in terms of wealth. Like, they didn't pocket a bunch of money. They just upgraded more. And those people are not going to sell anytime soon, right? Because they bought their dream home that they almost expected never to obtain. And they're like, hey, I'm great. I'm fixed for 2.75 for 30 years. I don't need to go anywhere, right? So now what does that do to the inventory level? It keeps it artificially low.
Crushes it.
And it's going to be there for some time. I mean, there's so many constraints. I could go into the generational, implications on inventory, right? The fact that boomers largely are not downsizing. They're aging in place. So keeping another segment of the inventory off the market, right? I could talk about how we've underbuilt since 2007, right? Family formations with the largest generation in United States history entering peak earning years. Like, we've got the demand base with the millennial generation buying their first, second, third home. We don't have the supply.
Yeah. Jay, what's some of the reasons we have underbuilt over the last, you said 2007.
Yeah.
What are the main causes of that?
Well, we stopped building in 2007 because the Great Recession was impending. Right. And lots of people had overbuilt for 2003, 4, 5, 6, 7, 4 to 5 years. And essentially it was liquidity. It was available financing for builders. There was no available financing for builders to be able to produce inventory. And simultaneously there was no demand because, upwards of 14% of America was getting their home foreclosed, right? So that's a huge number of people losing a home that are just completely out for years of the buying pool, right? So there was going to be a few-year period where there was not much inventory built. The challenge is that when the opportunity for available financing for builders came back, well, commodity prices were high. Right. And retraction rather than sprawl was the trend. Right. So coming out of the Great Recession, we had really, really expensive gasoline. Right. People didn't want to move locally. You'll know some of these communities. People didn't want to move to LaGrange anymore to buy a new home necessarily. Nothing against LaGrange, nothing against Shepherdsville, nothing against Shelbyville, nothing against Frankfort to commute back and forth to Louisville. They didn't want to commute paying $4 a gallon for gasoline. So infill, you started seeing the rise of home flipping, renovation, altering properties, infill developments, more condos, things like that, right? Instead of building, spec homes and new subdivisions. So this was the trend all across the United States. So we just underbuilt because the situation wasn't prime for those builders to be successful. So they didn't build. Simple as that. And just when we understand, it seems, that building is our way out of this inventory jail, right? Well, then lumber prices go up 400% on the back of COVID, right? And that stifles, but still, national builders, big track home builders. Locally, you've seen a presence with D.R. Horton. You've seen a presence with Elite Homes. It's owned by Arbor Homes, which is a division of Clayton and Berkshire Hathaway. You talk about Pulte or Centex, Fisher Homes, Ball Homes. All these large builders that can produce inventory at scale are struggling to ramp up fast enough. And then just as soon as they get ramped up, what happens? Demand pulls back. Rates jump, right? So it's a comedy of errors, if you will, a comedy of circumstance.
Yeah. So everything you just said, it sounds like, one, U.S. housing market's not crashing.
It's not.
Two, we still need more new construction homes.
A lot.
But now let's talk about, do we see that same thing in Louisville, Kentucky? Does the Louisville market represent the U.S. housing market, or how do they differ?
Louisville moves slower than the national markets, right? For new construction, I would say demand is slightly off pace than other very successful markets. So tends to be the older the city, the less new construction, right? So Louisville's a pretty old city, right? An industrial city. But, you're going to see places like Phoenix, Las Vegas, Austin, Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth, areas like that really boom with new construction. And you're going to see inventory pick up a lot faster. You're going to see demand pick up and recede a lot faster in places like that. So you're hearing places like these big national builders that I talked about just a moment ago. You're going to hear they've got real problems not being able to move inventory in cities like that. Louisville doesn't quite feel a little pain when demand shuts off. These builders do here, but it's not anything compared to those markets.
Yeah. So Louisville Business First released an article today. Rent increases are slowing nationally, but in Louisville, prices still climbed by more than 8% in January. And it is the seventh city in the country that saw the largest rent increase last month.
Dude, it's a great article. And to see the peer cities that were listed with there, Raleigh, North Carolina, number 1, Cleveland, number 2, a bit surprising. Indianapolis, very similar market to Louisville. Not surprised to see Louisville in that. But then you Charlotte, North Carolina, but Nashville is on that list. We know anybody who's driven down I-65 knows that Nashville's like the crane capital of the world, or crane capital of what is that, Midwest, Mid-South? I don't even know. But Nashville, you can't drive down the interstate through Nashville without seeing 15 cranes in the sky. But yeah, I honestly found the cities with the largest decreases more interesting though. Right, Phoenix, I just talked about 6.7%. So
which is kind of like one of those Nashville cities that absolutely boomed over the last few years. But Nashville's not seeing much drawback at all now. But Phoenix is.
Austin, Texas, huge boom city. Right, you saw a lot of COVID relocation in Texas. Specifically in Austin. I mean DFW and Houston also, but like Austin has seen crazy increases. I saw stories about $2,200, efficiency apartments in Austin. That's just not stuff that you typically see. Very interesting article though, man. I mean, I really love the work that Louisville Business First does. It's a place that I follow for a lot of local real estate stuff.
Yeah, they do a great job, and it's not very clickbaity. It's just facts, and they tell it how it is, and I think people really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's about all the time we have in this segment, folks. You're listening to the Jay Pitts Show here on Talk Radio 1080. We'll be back just after these words.
Welcome back to the Jay Pitts Show, Talk Radio 1080. Jay, I think this is going to be a very interesting one. Most people have probably heard about this by now. Let's talk about the train derailment in Ohio. I'm going to read a timeline of events from CBS News. February 3rd, train derailment. On February 3rd, about 50 cars derailed in East Palestine as the train was carrying a variety of freight from Madison, Illinois to Conway, Pennsylvania. No injuries were reported. First responders found evidence of one of the train cars releasing vinyl chloride.
Yeah.
Anything on that? I'll keep going. There's a lot more to this.
I mean, it's poisonous. Like,
it's not good.
No, definitely not.
February 5th, remaining residents ordered to evacuate. So the day before, they told residents to evacuate, and then one day after, officials issued evacuation orders to hundreds of residents near the Ohio-Pennsylvania state line. They urgently warned any residents who had declined to evacuate immediately.
I mean, so, not to give anybody a pass, but there's like a lot going on in the world. Like, I mean, the 3rd was, when was that?
About 2 weeks ago.
About 2 weeks ago. So, to be honest, when I first heard about it was Super Bowl Sunday. So it had already been a week at that point, right?
I think that's when most people heard about it.
I think that's when most people, well, because, I don't know if you realize this, but the largest day for social media use in the year is Super Bowl Sunday. Did you know this?
I did not know that.
So absolutely, it's like, I'm not going to quote a stat because I'd be pulling it out of thin air. But, a lot of people, content producers, etc., have entire plans drawn to generate just organic content, large followings, because they know all their followers are on social media during the Super Bowl. And so I'm on, to be 100% transparent, I literally am sitting next to my wife watching the Super Bowl, and she looks at me and says, "Is Rihanna pregnant?" And I said, "I don't know." And so I immediately go to Twitter, and there is like 75,000 tweets at that moment. And like, she'd been on stage for like 90 seconds at that point. So like, it was like one of the number one trending topics on Twitter at that point. And as I'm on Twitter, I see something about vinyl chloride and the train derailment. That's literally when I saw it. It was during halftime of the Super Bowl. So, I guess I kind of somewhat understand. The fact, it's a little unsettling to me that I haven't heard anything from our government, not the governor, not of Ohio, not the president of the United States, frankly, not FEMA. I know that they did a control burn, which I'm not a chemist or an environmental expert, so I don't know what that means. I presume they did what they thought was the right thing, but now we're starting to read about all these environmental implications that are coming, like fish and cattle and
So here's a little more of the timeline. So that was February 5th. They said everybody who's left in the town, get out. February 6th, controlled release of the rail car's chemicals. So like you said, they burned it off, and officials said that although it was the last option, it was perfect. It went perfect.
The control burn.
Yes. February 8th, evacuation order lifted. Residents were told they could return to their homes about 5 days after the incident.
Okay.
If that was you, knowing what you know now, I'm not sure you'd go back within 6 days.
Well, I mean, I'm hearing now that you can't boil water and rid the water of its contamination. Like, so why are people there?
I don't know. So let's get to the timeline again. So that was February 8th. Now it's February 16th, and we have this article from CBS News released today talking about the animals. So Marty Mertz, the director of Ohio's Department of Natural Resources, said on Tuesday that an estimated 3,500 dead fish had been found in local streams, tributaries, waterways, accounting for at least 12 different species. However, Mertz said we don't have any evidence of non-aquatic species suffering from the derailment. Not only here, but we are also communicating with the Pennsylvania Game Commission as well. So, I mean, it's terrible. That alone sounds terrible, but, it could have been way worse.
Yeah, I mean, according to them, that this control burn went well. But, I mean, we kind of got to take their word for it at this point, right? Because You're not an expert. I'm not an expert. When we're reading stories from ABC News and major media outlets, right? I don't know.
So later on in that article that, once again, was released today, February 16th, opposite reports from residents in the area.
Yeah.
Pet owners and caretakers, however, say their animals are suffering and some dying. Taylor Holzer was caring for more than a dozen animals when the accident happened and said several of his foxes now have swollen faces and runny eyes. One of his foxes, who was on a property within the evacuation zone, suddenly died after he wasn't able to evacuate it. He had learned of the evacuation orders too late, he said.
Oh, wow.
Here's another story. Another woman, Andrea Belden, was staying with her boyfriend, their 2 cats, in East Palestine when the derailment occurred. Despite getting the animals out when they got out when evacuations were announced. But one of their cats, a 2-year-old, who was perfectly fine, had a vet appointment just weeks before, got sick, and they had to put it down.
I mean, it's heartbreaking, heartbreaking. But I don't want to weigh in on these types of things, right?
Right. I mean,
judge.
This is from CBS News.
This is CBS News. It's a major media outlet, right? So we take it at face value. The unfortunate part, right, is that all sides of the story, there's an incentive for whoever takes a certain position to have that position. If someone says that we did it perfectly, well, it creates an incentive for someone to say that they didn't. And that's really the unfortunate part. And frankly, I know this is a non-real estate segment, but it's just like the conversation we had about the real estate market, right? It's hard to find the incentive, but anymore, the adversarial nature of just interpersonal communication. If I say the sky is blue, that creates an opportunity for someone else to say, no, the sky is black, right? And so it's really unfortunate to see that a tragedy, right, an environmental tragedy, a loss of life is now a talking point, for so many. But that's not even I'm not even refuting CBS News.
Right.
Like, this has probably got some real truth to it.
Yeah. I mean, overall, it's just super sad, terrifying. And I think it's even more scary that it's in Ohio. That's not too far from us.
Oh, no. I mean, not at all. According to Google Maps, it's 380 miles from here, from where we sit. East Palestine is. Yeah. So, I mean, it's North Ohio. It's really close to Pittsburgh. But no, it's it's right here. It's Middle America.
Yeah, and so it gets crazier. It gets a lot crazier, actually. So let me read you this. Life imitates art. Trail derailment in Ohio is in the same town where White Noise train crash was filmed. In the 2022 Netflix film White Noise, which I did watch, wasn't that big of a fan of it, but now I'm glad I watched it. Anyways, a train carrying toxic chemicals gets into an accident and is derailed, unleashing fumes that create an airborne toxic event. This chemical spill requires everyone nearby to evacuate the area and seek shelter far from the crash. Last week, in an instance of life imitating art, or vice versa, a train carrying harmful chemicals derailed in the very same town they filmed that movie.
We're in the Matrix. It's like,
it's unbelievable.
I can't. How is that possible?
I don't know.
I don't even know what to say to that. How can it be that coincidental?
Think about how many miles that train travels, where it has to start going wrong to crash
in the exact place
where a movie was just released a couple months ago.
There was the basis of a very similar situation.
Yes.
So how about this? And I think you might have an answer for this, but how about the fact that we've had reports on multiple other train derailments occurred at the same time?
Yeah.
Like within a week.
We were talking about that beforehand, and I read an article where apparently it happens a lot more than you think, but it's just getting reported on a little more now. It's like
because of the similarity to the.
Yeah, I forget what it's called, but it's like you see one red car and then you look around and start noticing.
Well, the part of the brain, oddly enough, is called the reticular activator. Right, the reticular activator is what gets you to notice similarity. Right, so you buy a new Jeep. You're driving down the road. All of a sudden, you see
it's a Jeep thing.
It's a Jeep thing. You see a Jeep everywhere, right? You may never have ever seen a yellow VW Beetle, but as soon as you see one, you see three, right? So that there is a thing there. There is a thing that is a phenomenon that is out there.
Yeah, it's a Jeep thing. Is I definitely noticed that growing up. My parents probably had about 10 different Jeeps where they would just get new ones, get rid of the one they had, and I became so numb to it's a Jeep thing. I can't stand Jeeps
Did you
anymore.
do the Jeep wave? So my brother just bought
to.
My brother just bought a Jeep, and now every time I see him, I throw him the Jeep wave. He gets so angry. It's the best. You know, as a big brother, you're required to do these things.
You might have to get a Jeep now.
No, absolutely not. I refuse. I'm just as opposed as you are. So I mean, I don't know that we can put a bow on this. This story is still developing. Obviously, let's monitor. You may hear back from us in future episodes about the train derailment up in Ohio. As you can probably tell, we're devoting at least a portion of each show to not talk about real estate.
Yeah, we really don't want this whole thing to be real estate. That's what a lot of real estate shows are about, just statistics. And I think we want to make this a little more unique and fun.
Yeah. Well, and also, you know, obviously I would love to sell you a home or sell your home for you, but this is not one big commercial. We actually have some things to say. We'd like you to listen because you want to learn something other than how fast I can sell your home. So anyway, that's about all the time we got for this segment. Thank you for tuning in to the J Pitch Show on Talk Radio 1080. We will be right back. And we're back, folks. Welcome back to the J Pitch Show, Talk Radio 1080. Thank you for listening. I think we've got Ryan's got a little surprise for me in segment 4 here. Let's hear. Let's see if he can stump the chump.
Yeah, you know, Jay. If you don't know, Jay is a very critical thinker. He thinks through things very well, and you know, it's always impressive to watch. So, you know, Jay, hypothetical, you're in a room with 3 investment bankers, 2 venture capitalists, 1 entrepreneur who has multiple exits, 4 NFT artists, 3 day traders, 2 computer hackers, 1 IRS auditor. Pick 2 to help you make the most money possible in 5 years. The others that you don't pick are trying to defraud, scam, or catch you doing something illegal.
So this is
Who
like,
do you pick and why?
This is like the animal exercise.
Yeah, I thought that one was so good. And actually,
So did you adapt this?
yes, I didn't adapt it. You're going to love this. I went to ChatGPT and I put that question in and I said, make a similar hypothetical question like this one, but make it about making money.
Oh, hilarious.
And
So
that was the first thing it spit out. And I did it multiple times. This was the best one, which we'll probably talk about ChatGPT on this show.
no, absolutely.
But yeah. you know,
Absolutely.
talk
So
us through your
I
thoughts.
literally, before I get into this, spent an hour the other night. Did I tell you about this? Or did you just know?
You told me about this.
Okay, I literally spent an hour the other night texting with a group of my buddies. My wife was laughing at me the entire time about, like, who would you pick out of, like, 10,000 rats and 5 gorillas. You had to pick 2 sets of animals to defend you, and the others were going to try to kill you. And this literally went back and forth with about 5 guys for an hour. And this, like, the male mind works in a funny way. But this is exactly like it. Okay, I appreciate that. All right, 3 investment bankers, 2 venture capitalists, 1 entrepreneur with multiple exits, 4 NFT artists, 3 day traders, 2 computer hackers, and 1 IRS auditor. Okay, so off the top, I will say no to the auditor. Okay, no to the auditor because that's like, you know, kind of reductionist thinking there. Like, if I'm going to get audited, then I need an auditor. But if I'm not going to get audited, then I won't need an auditor. He's not going to help me earn. Let's see. Now, if you would have said a tax planning, like CPA to the billionaire class, like I might have picked that. Let's see. 2 computer hackers, 3 day traders, 4 NFT artists. I'm going to say no to the NFTs. I'm not about NFTs. Call me old.
So I think something to remember about this, there's no rules. The only rule and goal is to make as much money as possible in 5 years.
Okay. All right. Much money in 5. Yeah, I guess that's a good point. Much money as you can in 5 years. Make, not keep.
Make.
Okay, so then that definitely rules out the auditor because we're not even worrying about taxes. We're talking about top line. Okay, 3 investment bankers, 2 venture capitalists, 1 entrepreneur with multiple exits. I'm going to say no to the entrepreneur because it's going to take more than 5 years. No to the NFTs. No to the IRS auditor. And I got to pick 2.
You have to pick 2, and the others are trying to defraud or scam you.
Defraud or scam you. So I got to pick the hacker so he doesn't steal my money. I don't think a day trader can beat an investment banker, but an investment banker might be. If you don't pick them, they can be a crook too. All right, I'm going to go, and you're going to tell me what I didn't think about, I'm sure. Off the top, I'm going to say the computer hackers so they don't steal all my money, and I'm going to say 3 investment bankers. 3 investment bankers and 2 computer hackers. Final answer.
I think that's pretty good. And actually, I didn't think through this at all beforehand. I wanted it to be pretty authentic, talk back and forth, let's decide. And I think I'm going to come to the same decision as you. But all of the other people combined together kind of scares me attacking you because they'll be able to figure something out.
It's going to be that way no matter what, right? Like no matter who you pick. Like I love the idea of venture capital. If I had an idea that only needed capital, I would go there. But then you're basically just a founder, just like the entrepreneur. And as you know, 5 years can go by in the blink of an eye, right? So I love the idea of the day traders because I'm a real estate guy. I don't understand the fundamentals of stock trading, especially not day trading. My strategy with respect to the stock market is give it your money to somebody smart and don't touch it and let it grow. That's what I'm looking at. There's very, index funds and things like that. So I'm not really educated. I could tell you all you want to know about real estate investing. The stock market is not something I've ever gotten into. It's a goal of mine for the future when there's more time, less coaching little league and more, more time to devote to hobbies, which is what this would be. But the venture capitalist would be good, but I think the investment banker wins out for me. And the hacker is just purely a defensive play.
Yeah, looking at this now, I think 2 computer hackers is what I would choose and 3 day traders. I think the combination of those 2 could work really well together.
So does the hacker get you the info to use on the day trading?
I think so.
Is that what you're doing? Well, but I mean, that could just as easily work on the investment banker side too.
Possibly.
I mean, because
day trading's quicker though.
Yeah, but that's just trading. That's just trading shares, right? Like, okay, arbitrage, understanding what's going up and what's going down. Fine, got it. Information you don't have access to, but the investment bankers do deals where you find dirt on people. And that, to me, that seems like it's got more runway.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So what, you're going to blackmail people for money? Is that?
I mean, maybe. Yeah. I mean, you haven't given me the rules that I'm not allowed.
There are no rules.
There are no rules. So, if I'm purely looking at this from a pragmatic standpoint and I'm just trying to generate as much revenue as possible in 5 years, probably not blackmailing. I think more along the lines of, there's this huge deal about to go and we can kind of hack things to figure out. I mean, this is Bobby Axelrod kind of stuff, right? And he's not a day trader, right? I mean, he's a hedge fund manager, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. The day traders work for Bobby Axelrod.
Yeah. I mean, I'm amazed looking at this again, how ChatGPT could take the prompt I gave it and spit this out. Oh, unbelievable. I mean, I did a video. Hannah produced a video for us the other day that we had completely written by ChatGPT. I said, literally, write a commercial for the #1 real estate agent in Louisville whose name is Jay Pitts. And they wrote the ad and we delivered a 60-second video based on, Hannah was in the room. I did not have a script. She had the camera on me. I said, hold on a second. Boom. All right, turn the camera on. That's how we did the video. That's incredible.
It's changed the game. This is not the subject of this episode.
Yeah.
I love the question. I'm going investment banker and hacker.
Final answer?
That's fine. That's final answer. I don't know how you could pick some. The NFT artist. How's the NFT artist going to hurt me?
Well, if it was 2.5 years ago and you had those NFT artists, you probably could have made a substantial amount of money.
That was 2.5 years ago.
True.
Like, I heard something funny the other day. It was probably a tweet. I spend entirely too much time on Twitter. But it said something about how, like, funds now call a recently minted millionaire NFT artist an accredited investor versus a guy who makes a $500,000 salary.
Yeah, I saw that same one too.
And it's just like, it really is funny, the world we live in sometimes.
We talk about a lot how, my Twitter feed and Jay's Twitter feed, I think is eerily similar. Like, anything he tries to tell me about now or sends to me, I've already seen it, and vice versa. When I send him something, he's like, yeah,
totally,
I read that this
totally
morning.
seen that. Well, it's good for conversation starting for sure. But it's only when you enjoy the same topics, right? Like, that's frankly kind of where I come out on it, which I guess is a good segue because, you're tuning into the inaugural episode of the Jay Pitts Show here on Talk Radio 1080. And unfortunately, we are just about out of time. So before we do that, before we move on, want to tell you where you can follow us, where you can find more information, more content produced by myself, by Ryan, by the team at JT Pitts and Associates and Remax Premier Properties. On the socials, you can find us on pretty much every social. If you can't remember and you're riding down the road, listen to this on the radio, it's at J Pitts Realtor. First name, last name, the word realtor, at J Pitts Realtor on most platforms. You can find me at JTPA Louisville on Twitter, at J_Pitts on TikTok. We do a lot of content on TikTok. Home base for most of our content is Instagram. We do a lot of reels, a lot of short form content. A lot of video. We put out a video a day with the help of Hannah, doing her editing and wizardry at making me sound smart. Do a lot of content there. You can interact with us here, on the show through any of the DMs on any of those channels. You can find Ryan. You want to give your handles real quick?
I'll do that next time.
Do it next time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, he's going to be modest. You probably should go check out his company, Simba. If you want to follow them, getsimba.com, SYMBA, like he's got on his hat, getsimba.com. But, I think for a first episode, this went pretty well.
Yeah, I think it went pretty good. And, we'll definitely get better at it and know how these go now. But, and I guess I can plug Simba socials.
Go ahead, man.
It's just Get Simba on all social platforms. We're on anyone you can think of. That's GETSYMBA.
Yeah, GETSYMBA.com or at Get Simba on pretty much all the social channels. Ryan does a ton of good short form video for Simba as well. But, any parting shots?
No, I enjoyed this. It's cool to be in an actual studio doing this with the headphones on and great mics that hopefully makes me sound a little better. Jay, I've always said you have a great radio voice. I'm going to get better at it.
Well, nobody's ever accused me of being quiet or short of words. So naturally a radio show. We've been doing a podcast for 5 years, so this feels a bit more natural. We'll learn the transitions and all the things, get you some good radio content. But once again, this is Jay Pitts, the inaugural episode of the Jay Pitts Show on Talk Radio 1080. We'll see you next week.